Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the Daily Takeaway. This is episode 6, and it is about racism and also segregation. Racism, I'm not sure if racism now, today, is worse than it used to be 100, 200 years ago, even before the American Civil War. Um, it's hard to know. I think nowadays, due to social media, you definitely see a lot of racist people sharing their thoughts and opinions far more than before the advent of the internet. But is it worse or is it getting better? But before we actually start the conversation about racism, what I thought I should do is get you the Oxford English Dictionary definition of racism. So if I can just grab that up for you from the definition. It says here, Oxford reference. This is oxfordreference.com. Racism. Quick reference. The inability or refusal to recognize the rights, needs, dignity, or value of people of particular races or geographical origins. More widely, the devaluation of various traits of character or intelligence as typical of particular peoples. The category of race may itself be challenged as implying an inference from trivial superficial differences of appearance and to alleged significant underlying differences of nature. Increasing evolutionary evidence suggests that this dispersal of one original people into different geographical locations is relatively recent and genetically insignificant matter. That's not a great definition, in my opinion. In my opinion, what the dictionary definition of racism is thinking one people or individuals with certain characteristics are more important than another. That's what I think it believes. Having the belief that some races or people are better than others, or having general beliefs about other people based on their race, showing this through violent or unfair treatment of people of other races, racist attitudes and remarks. So it's like back in history, white people thinking that they were far superior than black people, forgetting the fact that white people wouldn't be here if it wasn't for their ancient Yes, I would love a guest host today. I will jump onto Discord and have a guest host. Thiz Dizzle has kindly uh, chosen to jump in and dual host this podcast. Perhaps he has something interesting to say about racism. Um, it's definitely something that rubs a nerve the wrong way with me. Right, good morning, Thiz. You are now in the Underville channel. Hello. Not sure if your microphone's muted or still is. But I am somebody, I have to admit, there's never been an incident where I've felt that I've had a racist reaction to somebody. It just doesn't cross my mind. I treat you how I wish to be treated. I don't treat anybody differently. There's a saying by Tom Hardy. I'm going to grab this for you. Tom Hardy. I believe the quote was, not everyone gets the same version of me. One person might tell you I have an amazingly beautiful soul. Another might tell you, I'm a cold-hearted arsehole. Believe them both. I don't treat people badly, I treat them accordingly. So, and another quote here, not everyone gets the same version of me. One person might tell you I'm an amazing, beautiful soul. Another will say I'm a cold-hearted arsehole. Believe them both. I act accordingly. I pretty much treat people how they treat me. So if they come at me with negative energy, I try to deflect that, but if it doesn't, then they'll get negative back, because why? I'm not just going to sit there and be nice and be emotionally bullied or physically bullied by somebody that intimidates others. So other than that, I don't treat anybody differently. What about you, Thiz? Are you still there? Not sure if it's working. I'll check the chat, see if you're having any issues. But what is racism, really? I have an interesting take on what I think racism is and where it comes from. I may be wrong here, so do please forgive. I think racism, in part, comes from an old sort of part of the brain that doesn't like something unfamiliar. If you look at nature and you look at how certain species hang around with other species, they're not particularly welcoming to a different species coming into their area. For example, a pride of lions are not going to be, accepting of a tiger. Dogs don't like cats. Cats don't like dogs. Well, cats, to be honest, don't really like other cats, and ill-trained dogs don't really like hanging around with other poorly trained dogs. But in nature, if we forget the human element, dogs are pack animals. They will hang around with dogs. Cats will hang around with other cats, generally speaking. Species of birds will not look kindly at other species of birds. You see magpies will group together, but when a crow comes in, it's treated, it's given a bit of space. Groups of crows won't look kindly to other birds. My theory is, because we are part monkey, part ape, we are community species. We used to hang around way back when in communities, and I can imagine that part of our behavior is to look out for each other and not look out for, and be wary of things that look a little different. Now, fast forward God knows how many years into the future, it's kind of got misconstrued a little bit, and now people regard other individuals that look slightly different, that have slightly different characteristics, as being weaker, when in actuality there's just one type of human with just slightly different characteristics. But as a species, as a race, we're all one. We all, what do they say? Africa is the cradle of civilization. Humanity started there, and it may well finish there. We don't know. But we're all one species. It's just when we travelled north as a species, when we travelled north, hello, Thiz. When we travelled north, the need for darker pigmentation in the skin changed. There is a video by a scientist who, up until I saw the video, I didn't particularly like very much. Bill Nye, the science guy. And Bill Nye sums up racism in less than a minute. So let me just get this video for you. Bill Nye, racism. Yeah, here we go. So I'm going to load this up for you so you can all view it too. And up until this point, I didn't much care for Bill Nye, unfortunately. But it's such a wonderful post that he sort of changed my opinions about him straight away. So let me just open up my screen for you. So those people that are watching on video live and not just listening, here you have Bill Nye, possibly in his own house, showing you a video of showing you the Earth. It's less than a minute, and here we go.
This is a map of the continents of the Earth showing how much ultraviolet light lands in each latitude. It turns out the closer you are to the equator, the more intense the ultraviolet. We use reds and purples. But then as you move away from the equator, we change the colors to orange, yellow, greens, and grays. Now here's the same map of the same continent with just one color. And it turns out that everybody on Earth is descended from people that live here in Africa. And then as groups of us moved around the world, the color of our skin had to change. And here's why. Our skin is where we make vitamin D. If you don't get enough ultraviolet, you don't get enough vitamin D. But if you get too much ultraviolet, then you break down your folates. You have to have it in perfect balance. And because the ultraviolet varies, the color of our skin varies. And that's it, everybody. That's why we have different colored skin. But we're all one species. But we're not treating each other fairly. Not everybody's getting an even shake. So it's time to change things.
From that day that he posted that video, I was a fan. Up until that point, I thought Bill Nye was a knob. I didn't really like him very much. I just thought he was a knob. But it's changed my opinion on him. I don't know if this was a publicity stunt, or whatever it was, but everything he said is bang on the money. We are one species. We have different characteristics, as you would imagine any species would when it moves out into the world, into different parts of the world, and certain groups of individuals then start intermingling and don't mingle with the rest of the world, then any dominant characteristic of that group will take over. And so, for example, the Chinese, Asian communities have slightly tighter upper eye folds, so it makes their eyes seem a little bit narrower. I mean, Africans have slightly wider noses, have slightly denser bones, have slightly stronger muscles than European counterparts because of just the way that they hunt on a daily basis. They don't have, well, really, they didn't really have weapons and things. They hunted, they were hunter-gatherers and perhaps still are. So, genetically speaking, they're stronger. And then fast forward, several thousand, tens of thousands of years, those that travel to the Americas, intermingling, mating, copulating, all of that lot, any dominant characteristics that started to show up through random mutations and random genetic mutations and natural selection and survival of the fittest and so on and so on and so on, and what that group found attractive over other physical qualities, it's bound to happen. That's why you have such diverse wildlife all over the earth, that certain species will just have different characteristics, but they're all one species. You could say subspecies, but then when you say subspecies, you're kind of inferring that it's lower, being sub, and therefore inferior, and so on. But he hit the nail on the head straight away. In less than a minute, he described the issue, why we look differently, and why we shouldn't be treating each other differently. Because when it comes down to it, when you boil away all of the shite, all of the rubbish, down to the bare bones, we're all the same. But we don't treat each other all the same. What's your take, Thiz? You're still there.
I agree with most of what you said, if not all of what you said. Like you said, race is a tough subject, though.
I know, right?
It's a very tough subject.
It's volatile, isn't it?
It's very volatile. Very, very volatile.
And it shouldn't be.
Yeah, well, we should be able to discuss it openly without getting hate. But that's a perfect world, right? And
Oh
we
yeah.
don't live in such a world, unfortunately. Uh, and just the fact that we're two white guys, if this went
Mhm.
viral, quote unquote, we would get shit. I
Oh
guarantee
yeah.
it
Yeah.
from a section of Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, just based on the fact that we're two white guys discussing the topic of race.
Mm.
Which
Yeah, there's no differing of
I
opinion there. Yeah, there's no opposite ends having a conversation, but there shouldn't need
well,
to be.
not necessarily. I could have a totally different view on race than you do.
Mhm.
Um,
Tr-
I
True.
absolutely could, and we could discuss that, and we can get into that. We don't really necessarily have different. I guess we don't have a different like view of it.
Mhm.
We didn't grow up in with a different melanin than somebody else did, right? So
Mhm.
our although I don't know, I know a little bit about your background based on the podcast the other day and how you grew up, and it didn't
Mhm.
sound like you had a very easy upbringing. I don't know what kind of experience you had with, if any at all, with racism. I grew up in a Latin like neighborhood. I was pretty much the only white kid in a Latin neighborhood, so I experienced some racism growing up. It
Mhm.
wasn't really harsh, but it was more like, oh, here's the white guy. It's the white guy. It's Eminem. It's whatever, all of that kind of stuff. And so to me, it was kind of like, I don't know. I never really had a problem with it. Uh,
It's
personally,
just
I just kind of saw it as
insecurities.
a
That's what it
joke.
just sounds like to me. It's just insecurities. It's people bullying others for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it's a fear of the unknown. They don't,
Mhm.
they're afraid of what they don't know. People are, that's just generally speaking. Um, Now, how much of media plays into that, and what we see on TV and magazines and social media and
Mhm.
our upbringing, nature versus nurture.
Mm.
Obviously, uh, can you be born a racist? I don't think so.
No,
I think you
I
just
would
would have.
have to I have to jump in there. There were there's a lovely story that I'd like to tell. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of the African American child's name. So for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to call him Jamal, okay? Because I that's just what the first name. I was thinking of my name, and I was trying to think of like,
Why's it got to be Jamal? Why can't it just be Jay? Well, you could
yeah,
just call him Jay, bro.
yeah, but let's just call him Jay. We'll call him Jay.
Okay, I
So
like Jay.
Jay is a little boy that's going to nursery, and one day Jay loses consciousness and goes to hospital. Jay, they run some tests and they discover that Jay has a tumor in his brain, and it's going to kill him if they don't operate. So Jay is missing from school, missing from nursery for some time as they operate on this tumor, and it's successfully removed. And it has to allow for some recovery, so they give him like a couple of weeks to recover. So, the operation side and everything is healed, and he goes back to nursery. Everybody, every child there was Jay's back, and all the kids would run over to him, Caucasian, Asian, whatever, all different kinds of races, which I fucking hate the word race. All different kids from different backgrounds, from different geological locations, were coming over to Jay and touching his head and running their fingers over his scar, and just they were happy their friend was back. And that's just it, that these kids didn't see Jay as a black boy, they just saw Jay as Jay. Jay is my friend. My friend is back. Jay was poorly. He is now better. Yay. And then they would play with him. But would the parents think that? No, I think racism is taught from a young age. Because we are so impressionable from a young age, our minds are like a sponge, and we pick up on the fears of our parents. We usually adopt our parents' fears, because when we see parents scared of a spider, we then pretty much just copy what they do. We must be scared of spiders, and it's irrational, but we learn it as a child, and unfortunately, things that we learn as children are usually with us for life, whether we like it or not. So I believe racism is 100% taught to us. But it's not taught to us like these parents take their children home and sit them down and go, you must not fucking like this boy or girl or whatever. It's just behaviors. The environment we're in, the environment we're in at school, the environment we're in with our friends, our families, and what's on TV, social media, like all of these things, I think play a part to sort of corrupt the innocence of a child. Because
Yeah,
children are innocent.
I do think parents do teach people to hate other races. I do
Mm.
think they not necessarily sit them down, but they're like, we hate black people, or we hate white people, or we hate Asian people. I absolutely, I've seen that with like I've seen it like happen. So
Mm.
I've heard the discussions.
I don't want you hanging around with so and so. Why?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's because then they're not right for you, or you don't want. And then a child will be like, "Oh, okay," and it's such a shame.
It
Such a
is. It
shame.
is unfortunately such a shame.
Because your role, any child's role models have to be their parents. Parents need to be their child's role models. They need to teach them about the world. They need to lead by example. And when they lead by, maybe this child is going around with their parents and somebody in front of them is African American and they see their father or mother tutting and sneering and scoffing at whoever's in front, then it just teaches them subconsciously to hold some sort of contempt towards black people. And then that will
Or
just
any
snowball.
right,
Or any race, yeah, anybody that looks
right,
different. It's such a
right.
shame that people are like that. It annoys me. It makes me angry that people behave that way because I just don't care what you look like. It's never occurred to me. I've never said a racist slur. I mean, I've said jokes, stereotypical jokes, because it's funny because it's a stereotype, and it's funny because it shouldn't really matter. But I've never called anybody by the N word because it. I don't even like describing them as black. And I know
Well,
that if you say, "Oh,
they are black, so
Jay,"
it's just,
yeah,
yeah.
Jay, and they're like, which Jay? And then you've got to describe them. And being black is different to being white, and it's a descriptive term. So we're like, it's black Jay, not white Jay. Not that being black is bad. It's just that if you say Jay, then it's a blanket state. It's a blanket name, and you could mean any of the Jays, or you go
Well, there's nothing
blonde
wrong
Jay,
with
so on.
describing somebody. That's
Yeah.
part of who they are.
I,
There's
but I,
nothing
s-
wrong with that.
but
I don't
because
see
of
a
my
problem with that
dislike for
either.
racism so much that I just don't even like doing that.
Right, but then you're also taking away a part of who they are, and being
Mm,
black is a part of who they are, or being
mm,
brown and being Hispanic is a part of who they are. It's what they've
mm.
known their entire life. It's how they've grown up. They've got the good and the bad, and so when you take that away from them, you're denying a part of them as well. Like you can't just
Maybe.
say I'm at least that's what I've gathered from talking with my African American friends. You can't just say, "Oh, he's not black." You know what I'm saying? Or my Mexican friends. He's brown. Or my Asian friends.
But even then, I just want when I'm describing somebody, I just want to. It's like
I mean, you
I
don't
just want to describe
obviously
them
you're
by their
not gonna
name.
just
It's like
say,
it's
well, yeah, you
Jay
can just
said
say
that,
they're
but
Jay. Yeah, you don't
yeah.
have to. I mean, but if you're talking to, well, okay, when you're just talking to a friend, that's fine.
Mm,
I'm going to introduce you to my friend. This is my friend Jay. You're not going to say this is my black friend Jay.
yeah,
That would
yeah,
be weird. But
yeah,
if you're talking to a law enforcement officer, for instance, and you're like, hey, I saw this guy rob a store. He was 6 feet tall. He was white. You're not going to say they want those descriptors. So I think
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
case by case basis. But like if you're introducing your friends by their race, I think that's weird.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely, yeah.
and I think people would look at you awkwardly and maybe sense. maybe if they didn't know you, probably would maybe even might think you're a little racist for describing them that way. Because
Yeah.
I feel like in a situation like that, it's unnecessary. Even if there's two J's, it doesn't matter. Hey, this is J1, J2, or it doesn't like
J
there's two Trent
superior
versions.
and J inferior. Oh.
Ugh. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
that's a
think
joke,
at that
folks,
point.
by the way.
Yeah, obviously.
Um,
Uh,
there are, I mean, we need to joke about this whole racism thing. It needs to be met with laughter, not violence. There are movies. Do you remember the movie Not Another Teen Movie,
yeah, I do remember that movie.
where there's a guy in it that's African American, and he is the token black guy of the film, and he has to behave in a particular way, and they make fun of that. Would that? I don't even think they'd be able to get away with that these days. Or the film Aeroplane, when there are two
Well,
Jamaican guys on a plane, and they're treated differently because they're black.
it's interesting because I mean, you talk about a comedian like Dave Chappelle who
Yeah.
gets quote unquote canceled all of the time for his jokes, whether they be
Mm.
transgender jokes or racist or quote
This
unquote racist
cancel thing
jokes.
is just a joke in
Yeah, cancel
itself.
culture is dumb because at one point or another, everybody in their life,
Will be
even
cancelled.
Gandhi, yeah, even Gandhi has said something that is could get him canceled. Gandhi recently said, what was he joking about? The next female Dalai Lama, that she better be good looking because that's the only thing she's gonna bring to the table. And I'm paraphrasing, and he
Mm.
got canceled for saying that. Like, and these were recent quotes.
Hmm.
But everybody in their life has said something that could get them canceled. So cancel culture is so dumb. Now, when we're talking about like just to jump off, not necessarily off topic, but staying on cancel culture, we're talking about like a Harvey Weinstein or something like that, Weinstein, whatever, who has raped multiple women. Obviously, that guy deserves to get put in a small dark hole and just forgotten about, right?
Hmm.
Like case by case basis. I really try to take everything on a case by case basis, and some things are harder than others. But when it comes to sensitive top subjects like race or culture, ethnicity, gender, whatever the case may be, I feel like it should be. You can't paint everything with a broad brush, right?
Hmm. It's not
Um,
as simple as, pardon the pun. Uh, it's not as simple as black and white.
no, it's
It's not.
definitely
It's
not.
not
There's a
clean
lot
cut.
of gray. There's a
Hmm.
lot of gray.
Have you ever dated somebody from
Hmm.
a different again quotation, a different race or a different area of the world?
Most of my girlfriends have not been white, actually. Most
Mm,
of them
yeah.
have been either Latin or African American. I've dated an Indian girl,
Mhm.
Asian girl. Most of my girlfriends, I only had one white girlfriend actually. So, uh, yeah, and maybe that's because I grew up around, in a very diverse, uh, like neighborhood when I was growing up, and ethnically, anyways,
Yeah.
and racially, I guess you could say. I don't know. I have no idea. It's just I don't dislike white girls by any means. Uh, I've dated them, but I only had one long term relationship with a white girl.
Mm.
Um, but again, that's just what I've gravitated towards, I guess. But
Yep.
again, I don't discriminate in that sense.
Yeah, I've dated.
What about you?
Yep, I've dated black girls, and sometimes the very first thing they ask is,
Hello?
"Have you ever have you ever dated?" Sorry, I don't know why I muted on. Yes, I've dated black girls before, and some of the first things they've ever asked was, um, "Have you ever dated a black girl before?" And I'm
Mm.
just thinking, is what? Why does that matter? Because they must know in some sense that it's gonna be awkward. It's gonna be, maybe their family will think, "Well, who's this white boy?" Or maybe maybe they think my family's gonna be like, "Who's this black girl?" Or maybe they just think there's gonna be some social unrest around, and just think, "Oh, black boy, a black girl and a white boy holding hands down the street." Ooh, like it's none of their business to begin with.
If they're
Like,
dating them and they ask, I don't have a problem with the girl asking me if I've ever dated a black girl.
yeah, I mean, I
I
don't mean
I
it's
think
not
it's a fair
not not
question, to be
not.
honest.
I don't mean that it's none of her business to ask. I mean, it's nobody else's business whether or not I'm holding the hand of a black or a white girl. It doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I agree. I don't. You still think people are against interracial marriages like that or interracial
Um,
relationships?
I
I
well, I
think there's.
think
I think.
people
Well,
stare.
obviously they do exist.
Yeah.
Obviously, those people do exist. They are against. There are racists that would go that far
Mm,
to ban interracial relationships.
mm-hmm. As if they are
Unfortunately.
the law, and who they think other people can fall in love with is down to them and what they think is right, and it just goes to show how shallow they are, really.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to insecurity, like you said.
Yeah.
I think they're just very insecure. Maybe they maybe they don't like themselves and they're projecting outwards, which is
Mm,
very possible.
yeah.
Um, I find that to be the case with a lot of people who are just negative in general. They're not happy with themselves,
Yeah.
and they're not really capable of introspection, looking inward, and figuring out what's going on. Or they don't have access to therapy, like we were talking about, which is
Yeah.
so I think it's so important, even if you're not necessarily struggling with mental health at the moment, and even more so if you are, right? But
Hmm. I mean,
when it comes,
yeah.
go ahead.
I was going to say, like, is there anyone in your family that have come from different heritage? Like, for instance, my foster family, my foster mum, she's half Jewish,
Mm,
so and she has a brother, and
I'm Jewish.
oh, I was going to try and say something, shalom. I
Lahem.
can't fucking remember what
Yeah.
it is. Um,
Yeah.
I can't remember what hello is in, but
Lahem.
lachaim.
Lahem. Yeah. Lahem.
Um. I might have pronounced it better than you, and I'm not even Jewish.
You did. You did pronounce it better than me. I'm I'm a I'm a non-practicing Jew. Okay.
Okay. Um. So her brother, uh, he emigrated to Australia decades ago, and he's finally become a citizen. But he's got some sort of radical views towards the Abos. That's what he calls them, the Abos, the Aborigines in Australia. So he has a very racist view towards them. And this, of course, makes my foster mum quite angry because he seems to forget where he's come from. His mum fled Austria when the going was good to avoid
When they're being
being
persecuted,
thrown
right?
into Auschwitz and other such places. So
Mm-hmm.
for him to have these sorts of views about people that look differently is like, come on now. Come on.
Yeah, you should know better, right?
Yeah, you should fucking know better. Like, pack it
Mm,
in, grow up. I don't care how old
mm.
he is and if he's my foster mum's brother. It's not right.
No, it's not.
It's never right. And I don't know if you know this about me, but a lot of people say that I'm a really creative artist and I'm really good at art and so on. Part of my creativity is visualizing things. And for a long time, I've wanted to do an anti-racism campaign poster.
Mm,
And I don't know how successful this would be. I would have to pay people. But essentially, it is 4 photographs in a larger photograph. So top left, top right, bottom right would be 4 people from 4 backgrounds in exactly the same situation. And in my mind, it's of a mother or a father holding the hand of a child that's in the hospital bed. So it's a child's hand laid on, resting on the hospital covers, and the
mm,
father or the mother holding their hand, holding their fingers, whilst you
mm.
see a tube taped and into their wrist. So that immediately tells you the child is poorly, the father is, or the mother is consoling them, And my idea of that was to have 4 children, 4 parents, consoling their children, and then just saying, what's the difference? It's a black person holding a black father holding the hand of their black child who's poorly, an Asian person holding the. There's no fucking difference. There's no difference, and like just 4 photographs, just proving visually there's no difference other than the pigmentation of our skin, and there are a few minor characteristic changes that don't matter. And to me, that would be my anti-racism campaign. Is just proving that we're all the same, whether we want to or not. When a black person falls and scrapes their knee, are they in pain? Yes. When they cut themselves, when a white person cut themselves, do they bleed? Yes. Does a black person bleed? Yes. So on and so on and so on. Just pointing out that when you really think about it, the only differences between us are the differences that we have just because of the area we're in. So we look a little bit differently, but we're the same. Like it's just it makes me angry. Do you remember the film Get Out
Yeah,
with
yeah, Jordan
Daniel
Peele.
Kaluuya, Jordan Peele's film? I couldn't
Yeah, I
get
just saw
through
his
that.
most recent film.
I,
Really? Why?
I,
Why not?
it made me angry.
Hmm.
I got about halfway through when he started to realize when he realized his girlfriend was racist, and she was panicking for her keys, and then she faked not being able to find her keys, and then the boyfriend realizing that she too was racist, and that I got to that point where I was just like, I can't watch anymore. I feel like I'm going to put my fist through the TV. I just couldn't watch it, which is a sign of a good film and good acting, that it's triggered that emotional response in me. That's a sign of a great film. But
Yeah, Get Out was a good film.
it, I couldn't, I don't think I'll go back to it and watch it ever again. Because it just made me angry. I just can't do it.
You know what bothers me about Jordan Peele, and it actually is based like on race. He said he would never hire a white actor as his lead. Now, I respect that he's a black man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that he wants to hire and that he wants to have more black people in his movie and represented. But to say that you're never gonna hire somebody based on their race, to me is silly. Like, what if they were just the best person for the job? At the end of the day, you see a bunch of people, and that Asian guy or that white guy. Well, he said white guy, so I got to use white guy. He said that white guy is just the best person for the role at the end of the day, and he hires somebody else just because they're not white. I have a problem with that personally.
um.
To me, I get what he's doing, but I don't like it.
Well, I'm
I,
assuming it's because his films are. Well, I would have thought. I don't know why he's trying to make films,
I mean,
racially motivated, but just to say you're not going to cast a
I wouldn't
white
say
man
they're
as a lead
racially
role, but
motivated
or if he just
because
wants them to be about black people.
yeah, I saw. It's not that because I saw Nope on Thursday last week or whatever. And
Is
it's a
that
good
the
movie.
alien one?
Yeah, it's the only one. I enjoyed it, and to me, it didn't feel like there were any racial undertones. But I guess you
Mm.
could probably pick them out of anywhere if you're really looking. Um, it was just an entertaining movie to me. I enjoyed it. Daniel Kaluuya was great as the lead. I loved him in that role actually. And there
Kaluuya's
was a
great,
white
yeah.
guy in there was a white guy in the film, and a couple of them, and they played uh some supporting roles, and they were good in their roles. Uh,
Mm.
and but obviously the movie was mostly centered around Kalia and his sister. Kiki Palmer, I think, is the his sister's name in the movie, and they're great. But for when you go out and say that, I feel like he probably should have kept that to himself. But
Mm.
but then again, I appreciate the honesty, being open and honest about that. Uh, obviously, I don't know. I,
This
I,
may be a
if a white
controversial
director would have
opinion.
said that,
Mm. Yeah.
y- I don't think he'd have
Uh,
another. I don't think he'd get another job.
Possibly, yeah.
I don't
This
think
may
so.
be a controversial opinion, but I don't really like Jordan and Peele.
I didn't like Us and Get Out. Get Out was good. I didn't think Us was good, even though Us is filmed where I live in Santa
Key
Cruz,
and Peele,
literally right up the
even
street.
not Jordan and Peele. His name's Jordan Peele. Key and Peele. I don't
Sure.
like their TV show, their
Oh
comedy
yeah,
stuff.
Key and
I
Peele.
don't like it at all.
I didn't like it at all either. To be honest, I
This is
watched it.
weird.
I love Chappelle Show. Some of the Key and Peele skits are kind of funny, but
Yeah,
to me, it was just they were just trying to be
funny.
Dave Chappelle's. Yeah, they were trying too hard to be funny, and they were trying to be like the next Dave Chappelle show, and it was not comedy for me. But comedy is subjective, and so
Yeah.
I think it's okay that we both don't like it. Not everyone's gonna like, you know,
Mhm.
art. Uh,
Mhm.
so and that's comedy is a very tough thing to get down. It's hard to be really funny consistently. There are very few really funny people out there. Like you could probably name a handful of comedians just off the top. I could probably only name a handful of comedians just off the top of my head that I think are actually funny. Like they're few and far between. I'm sure there's some funnier ones out there that don't get a lot of recognition,
Mm.
but yeah,
I mean,
uh,
here,
comedy stuff.
I know we're going off on a bit of a tangent here, but that's the nature of podcasts, right? Um,
Yeah,
my idea of a comedian is not being able to script a funny show. It's just being a funny person.
yeah, I agree.
And there is a comedian in the UK called Lee Mack.
Mm,
Lee Mack does a TV show called Would I Lie to You, where the panelists come on and they tell a truth or a lie, and the other team have to guess whether or not it's a lie by, quizzing them and interrogating them essentially. Tell us the truth. Um, his stand up, in my opinion, is crap. It doesn't make me laugh. His television shows that are a comedy don't make me laugh. But his quick wit and humor, like who he is, when he's not scripted and not trying to be funny, he's just being himself, is hilarious.
that's
It's
interesting.
yeah, he's just when he's interrogating people and asking questions, and he's so quick that it's funny. But yeah, everything else he does, even though he's a comedian, is not funny. Um, do I find, say for example, Dave Chappelle funny as a comedian? No. Did I
Really?
find his TV shows and sketches funny? Yes. So, for instance, True Hollywood Stories starring, Charlie Murphy.
Mm.
When I loved Charlie Murphy. My God, could
Yeah,
that guy tell a story? I'd
yeah.
listen to him all day. Those sketch shows were hilarious, with Prince playing basketball and things like that, like hilarious and uh, what is it? Ah, Charlie Murphy and what was the name of that rock star? I can't remember his name. Anyway,
You said,
found
yeah.
him funny. There's a lot.
Interesting. I do like
Mm,
Chappelle's stand up
I
and his comedy shows, but
um
again, it's subjective. It's
yeah,
hard. It's subjective. So,
there aren't many stand-ups that I've found like hilarious. I mean, Robin Williams was good when the
oh
two
yeah,
towers were hit and they needed to cheer up New York. They couldn't go wrong with Robin Williams, to be honest.
no, I cried
Um,
when he died. I'll be honest.
Lee Mack. He's funny, I find. Lee Evans is pretty stupid. He's another British one. I quite like Fluffy, the
You like?
um, the fat uh, um, Hispanic American
Oh yeah, yeah,
comedian,
yeah.
Fluffy.
Enrique or what's his name? Iglesias.
Can't remember his real name actually. I just remember him as Fluffy.
Yeah, he's funny. He's
Yeah.
really funny.
Um.
Do you like Gervais? Ricky Gervais?
Yeah. Ricky Gervais stand up is good. Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
a lot of it's dark. Did you hear about it? Was it you that told me this? Did you hear about the joke that he did recently? It's like, uh, I don't like those old-fashioned women. I like modern women with dicks.
Oh, where he made the joke about, yeah.
And
I
that
heard
didn't
that joke. He got a
go.
lot of shit for that.
Yeah, of course he would. Of
The
course he
most
would.
controversial thing you say is you don't like women with dicks in 2022. Yeah,
Because
that is a very controversial statement.
and he's got some great stand up. His stand up on politics and God and things like that is funny. Not
Yeah,
all
I
of it's
like
funny, but some of
Drake's.
it. But I
No,
mean,
not all. Not every comedian
it's
is gonna
funny.
have like is gonna hit it 100% of the time with
Yeah,
everybody. So, um, that's one of
yeah,
the hard things about comedy is that they can be standing up there in front of thousands of people and tell a joke they think is going to be hilarious, and they can just get booed right off the stage. I'm
yeah.
sure it's happened to every single last one of them. But
Mm,
back to race, just for a
yes.
second. Do you think uh, black people or Spanish people or Asian people can be racist towards white people?
Oh, absolutely. My
Yeah, I agree.
friend, my friend Grant, when he left, when we, graduated high school, and he went to Japan to work as an English teacher, along with like two or three other people from our year also went to Japan to become English teachers. He
Mm.
then married a Japanese woman, and they had children together. Like I think three kids at the moment, and good-looking kids, good-looking mixed race children. Like
Yeah, they're
I don't know how he managed it, but I mean, I wouldn't say he's a good-looking guy, but his kids were good-looking. They
genetics are weird.
they his children received a lot of racism in school. Even though they're Japanese, they were born in Japan, they look Japanese, but just not like fully Japanese. And the
Yeah.
racism became so bad that they had to leave the country to come back to the UK. Because believe it or not, a lot of people think, you know, Britain and America and so on are racist. I think perhaps they are perhaps some of the most race tolerant countries in the world. You just have extremists, and when news and what you learn about the world if you live in other countries is, the emotionally charged news about racist attacks and so on, you think
Jap-
the entire population is about that. But
Japan is very nationalistic,
yes,
very
they're
nationalistic.
very
And
well.
same with
Everybody
China.
forgets they joined with the Nazis,
Yeah, well, same with China, and same with in most Asian countries.
and I believe Italy
My,
as
my,
well, also very racist.
they are, yes. Uh, my best friend growing up was Vietnamese,
Hmm.
and we me and my buddy Jimmy, we used to love to go to the beach, but he wasn't allowed to go to the beach because his parents didn't want him getting too dark, and that's because darker Asian people are looked down on as lesser. That's because back in the day, when they were slaves, when they were darker skin as an Asian person, it meant you were like you worked at a rock quarry or you had a shitty job and you were of a lesser status, and that's
Oh.
still those and that still holds still true today. Like that's why you'll see Japanese people with umbrellas everywhere or Chinese people with umbrellas everywhere. They like to keep their light skin tone. It's looked on as like a high class, as you're in your upper class. They don't want you to be
Mm,
a darker skin tone. Um,
that's
um,
interesting.
yeah, so he wasn't allowed to go to the beach very often because of that, for that reason. So if he got too dark, they would say no more beach for you for like a month and 2 months. Like you're not allowed to go outside like that. So
Wow.
uh yeah.
The more you know.
And I yeah, and that still happens today. So uh again, countries it's not just America. America is racist. Great Britain, UK.
Hmm.
I think there's racism everywhere,
Everywhere, yeah.
unfortunately.
Because
Yeah.
it comes down to the individuals. And
Right.
negativity seems to squawk louder than positivity. We always and as people, I can definitely relate to this according to my parents, is that I would focus and latch on to negative comments about me far more than I would ever latch on to positive comments. In fact, I
So
dismiss positive comments all the time, and if they say something negative, then I take it personally and I'm very offended. But
very normal.
that's yeah, maybe it is. And
It is.
again, people's comments about appearances. there may be racial undertones, and then that's what people focus on and that's their takeaway, and they'll think a country is racist because of it. But yeah,
Yes.
I don't know. Racism is everywhere because there are children that have been brought up badly by their parents who may in turn have been brought up badly by their parents, and they've taught their children to be racist or to look down on others or something. But
Yeah,
I can imagine
unfortunately.
that sort of stuff happens everywhere in every country. So, as a nation, I
Yes.
don't think British people are racist because I just don't see it. In America, I don't see Americans being racist. And even if America were racist, somebody needs to give the country as a whole a clout around the ear hole and say, remember where you come from.
Mm.
America was meant to be the land of the free and welcoming to everybody. What changed? What's happened?
Yeah, I
Like,
don't know. It's a good question. As a whole, I don't think America's racist. Are there
mhm.
sections of America that are more racist than others? Are
Like
there
the
groups
deep
of
south
people?
used to be in like the slave trade, right? And the
Yeah, in the
further
deep south.
north you went, the more the more understanding they were.
Yeah, and there are definitely sections of the South that are still very racist and backwoods and backwater, and you can where they have cops that are taking bribes on the side of the
Mm,
roads or just pulling people over just because they're black, and
yeah,
that definitely happens, unfortunately, still.
well, that would make me
Um,
angry. It would make me angry. It's like,
it,
it
it
does just
is
make me. I
upsetting.
mean, I watched what is it? Straight Out of Compton. That made me angry.
What
When
made you item? Okay.
what made me angry about Straight Out of Compton was when they leave their workplace to go out into the street, and then the
Oh
police
yeah.
harass them outside there. And like, what? It just made me act. Well, why? And getting them to go onto the ground and like threatening them and this, and then the manager comes out and says that they work here. It just that made
Yeah.
me
Well,
angry.
it's
It's
because they
just
had that "fuck the police" song, and that was cops definitely still don't like that when you say when you give a middle
oh, you
finger
mean
to a
that
cop, even though
f the
even though
police, that sort of thing.
even though in America you can drive by a cop and say fuck you, that's protected. Like that's a Supreme Court protected like ruling straight. You can go up to any cop and just say fuck you. Uh, if they want they want to try and find a reason to put you in jail and that cop is having a bad day, I'm sure he will. I've seen it happen way too many times on videos. Uh,
Mm,
even even though they're supposed to uphold the Constitution and protect your right, even against
yeah.
something like hate speech, which I guess saying "fuck the police" I guess is a form of hate speech. As long as they're
Mm,
not fighting words, you're going around saying "I have a bomb" or "I'm going to kill a bunch of people." A lot of
yeah, that's
things in
stupid.
America are
Yeah.
protected. Yeah,
Red
when it comes
flagged
to
over a
speech.
phone call because you say the B word.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, another instance of that in I watched what is it? The Equalizer with
Mm.
Denzel
The
Washington,
movie,
and
yeah.
Denzel Washington comes up against two corrupt cops that are picking on the minority shops and businesses and threatening them with burning their businesses down if they didn't give them money. And he obviously beats the crap out of them and holds their badge up to them and says, you swore an oath this, but to protect and serve. Like you should be fucking disgraced. It's the same thing
Yeah.
with the coppers these days. You swear an oath to protect and serve. Like,
Yes.
but
And
like,
uphold the Constitution of the United States
like,
against
oh,
foreign and domestic.
makes me
But
angry. Like,
yeah,
don't they must? I don't know. We're going into like deep delving into like psychology and people's hang ups and why people decide to be a police officer. Were they bullied at school and now they want revenge, or I don't know. There's got to be reasons.
unfortunately, this still happens in Baltimore. Uh, they recently arrested like 12 cops just a couple years ago that were shaking down uh, people that were lower in the community. It wasn't just black people; it was black people, white people. They were taking their money, selling drugs, and this was just recently. It happens all the time, all over the country, unfortunately.
Mm,
And cops around here, they have this whole thin blue line saying where that even if they see something that they don't like, they don't snitch on the other cops because when you snitch on other cops around here, and the cops know they're not going to want to help you on a call, or they're not going to come, and save you. Like, it's just an ass backwards situation. Like, the whole thin blue line, not snitching on my fellow cops, is it's so dumb to me. I'll never understand it. Like, why wouldn't you want to get rid of these bad apples?
Mm.
Uh, it's it's just
Yeah.
it
You
boggles
know,
my
but
mind.
yeah, by snitching, if nothing gets done, then you still have to work with these people. It's like snitching in general. If somebody breaks the law and they're like, "Well, snitches get stitches," well, you wouldn't be getting stitch. You wouldn't, you wouldn't be being snitched on if you were behaving yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I don't.
The
The
only
whole and
reason
most people end up
why,
snitching at the end of the day,
what are they
anyways.
more
They
angry
really do.
with? That they've done something wrong and somebody thinks that they've done something wrong and they've then been caught. Are they angry because they wouldn't have been caught because they would have gotten away with it otherwise? Probably that's the most likely one. But just
Yeah.
don't do something wrong in the first place, and you won't have to worry about this sort of stuff.
I think I saw a crazy stat where 50% of murders in America go unsolved,
50%
which
of
is
murders go unsolved.
yeah, I saw that the other day, and I think it was on the
Crikey.
Joe Rogan podcast, but I don't know how true that is, to be honest. I know a lot of murders go unsolved. Oh no, it was on the Philip DeFranco show. He was talking about it, so he's usually more correct about his stats.
Oh
But
right. I don't know who
even if it's
Philip
like,
DeFranco is.
oh, he does like a daily news show on YouTube. It's pretty good, where he just talks about
Oh,
like maybe 3 or 4 things, and it's like a 12, 15-minute video. I've been watching him since like 2008 or something like that.
maybe
He's
that's
been
something
around
I
for a
should get
long time.
into. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I like the long form podcast better
Hmm.
than what his is
Yeah.
more like he talks about something for like 2 or 3 minutes and you don't really get a deep dive. And I sense you're more of a deep dive kind of guy anyways, that you like to really get into a subject. And
Mhm.
I like that as well, to be honest.
Yeah, because
Um
not everything is superficial. You got to dig a little
now.
deeper.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely like that form. That's why Joe Rogan blew up. He was really one of the first long form podcasts.
Hmm.
People wanted more than just snippets, right? They wanted
Yeah.
to listen to people, intelligent people. Well, I'm not a big fan of Joe Rogan. I think he's a curious guy, but anyways, I still watch some of his podcasts, but he has some intelligent people on sometimes, and listening to those conversations can be very enlightening.
Yeah.
It just depends.
I might have to leave you to solo cast this for a moment if you want to talk about what your issues with racism, and I'll jump in. I just need to go to the loo, and then that's it really.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay. I think when it comes to racism, especially when it comes to America, I, being a white guy, being a white man, white male, I guess you could say I'm privileged. I have white privilege, as you would say, especially with a very atypical name like Trent. But I wish, like me and Jay were talking about earlier, that we could just discuss these things, whether despite the color of our skin or our cultural or ethnic background, that we could discuss these very, I don't want to say troublesome, but these hard topics to just like and just be able to be open minded about these things. Um, I know that's not always going to be the case with everybody. Unfortunately, some people they just want to stay in their box, and they want to hear from people who are also in their box, and and the second you try to get them outside that box, they panic, and they just start squirming, and they'll do anything just to crawl their little booties back inside that box, just to keep from affecting their way of life, really, or their way of thinking, for that matter. The human brain is very good at protecting itself, and so at least when it comes to people today, I find it more less and less people are open minded when it comes to subjects on you know race or gender, sex, ethnicity. I mean, hell, even the TV shows or uh, comedy, the comedians or art or whatever, video games that they like. They're like, this is what I see. This is the way I see it. Good luck trying to convince me otherwise. You could show me that I'm wrong 20 times over, but it doesn't matter because I'm not moving from my position. And unfortunately, I find, like I said, more and more people are just, that's just the way they see things. Um, um, well, whether or not media plays a big role in that, I feel like it does, unfortunately. Yeah, I feel like it's, you're like, people are either like a CNN guy or they're a Fox News guy or girl or whatever, MSNBC, and they have their host they like to listen to for their 60 minutes at night or 30 minutes and to get their opinions, and then they go to the workforce, they go to their job the next day and they regurgitate these these opinions they've heard uh, from, you know, like a Tucker Carlson or Don Lemon or Rachel Maddow or whoever the case may be, um, and they take that as the gospel. And especially when it comes to issues of race or, you know, here in America, border, the border, quote unquote, open borders are something that uh, the right likes to say the left wants, when that's the farthest from the truth. But unfortunately, the right believes that the people on the left want open borders and they just want to get rid of all the Mexicans, which would be a terrible idea because they do the jobs that most Americans don't want to do, like picking in the field. I live next to Salinas, California, one of the produce capitals of the world, and I know for a fact that if you drive by there, there are no white people doing those jobs. They get paid, 10, 12, 13, $14 an hour to do hard labor all day long, 5, 6, 7 days a week. And that, no American wants to do that job. No one. So you want to get rid of those people? Well, guess what? Your produce prices are going to skyrocket as if they aren't already high enough with inflation right now. And closing off the border completely is not the answer. It's already really tough for people to get into these countries, which is why we saw what the migrant van, not even 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, with like 60 people who just, with no air conditioning, no toilets, in the back of a freaking semi truck, just passed away. If the border was open, obviously they wouldn't need to be sneaking across the country like that, right? Freaking these coyotes are getting paid $8,000 a head to transport these people across the Mexican the border into America. And if we had open borders, like, people on the right like to say, unfortunately, then that wouldn't be the case. And I've heard that I recently read that they're raising the prices from $8,000 a head to $15,000 a head. And these people, essentially, when they cross, they can't always pay right away, so they get put into the indentured servitude, essentially, as slaves to pay back off their debt. But they also get charged for housing and food, and they got to pay for that. And so, what was $15,000 is now $30,000, $40,000. So, these people are working off their debt for 10, 15, 20 years to these people, these disgusting people that take advantage of people who just want to, have a chance at a better life, which is like, what we were talking about earlier, how, America used to welcome everybody. And I wish that were the case. And I know rent prices and, taxes and cost of living is out of control right now, pretty much for everyone, except for the small minority of, wealthy out there, I guess, who can just afford to pick a pack up and go whenever they want. Um,
Back.
but welcome back.
I
I was going off on a tangent.
I was thinking a lot of racism is about power and control. And
Oh
there's
yeah.
a scene from um Django where Django is having a beer for the first time, and Christoph Waltz's character says to him, in the case of this slavery malarkey, you know, if you're in no position to refuse, all the better. But that being said, I feel guilty, and that just speaks volumes. Is that people back in the day weren't in a position to say otherwise because they didn't have the power, the money, the influence to say no, and they just get roped into all of this stuff. They just get trapped into racism because people with self-imposed power, the whites thinking that they could tell everybody what to do, and who better to tell what to do than somebody that is not going to say no to you, like
Yeah, that's seen as a
black people.
lesser individual. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
and
because
I
of
love
color of
that
their skin.
film. I absolutely love that film. You know, Django getting revenge. I love films about revenge when people are
But
wronged. I love that sort of stuff. And I
yeah,
love Jamie
Django.
Foxx. Like, I think he's amazing.
Yeah,
But
he's an amazing actor. He's gonna play Mike Tyson in a new
oh, nice.
biopic coming up soon. I don't. Yeah, he does the Mike Tyson voice perfectly too. It's insane. So I can't wait for that.
One thing about Jamie Foxx I have noticed is that when he's hanging around with white people, he behaves very differently to when he's hanging around with black people. He behaves
Mm,
more black when he's around black people and less black when he's around white people. Now, you could say that's him being disingenuous. Or on the other hand, you could say that's just him playing the room, which I think
yeah,
is probably the smartest thing, is that you consider who you're around and you act accordingly. And it's not being yourself, but it's also, I
well,
guess there's an element of respect there. But again, don't take away from the fact that I love the guy. I love listening to him. I think he's fantastic. I'd
yeah. Well,
listen to him
maybe
all day.
Jamie Foxx has multiple sides to himself, so maybe he is still being himself. Like you're just seeing a
Mm,
section of him when he goes around other people. But yeah, I think he's playing the room, and I think that's the smart thing to do.
yeah.
When you're running, obviously, I'm not gonna go into a room full of Hispanic people or something like that and just be like, "What's up, Vato?" Or like,
Mm.
uh, I
How
think
you
that would be different for me.
doing?
But
This is
yeah,
Hefe, man.
yeah, exactly. Uh, but I'm not, case by case basis.
Yeah.
And go back to that.
Um, and a lot of
But
what
yeah,
was
I
it?
like Jamie Foxx.
Because there's a lot of racial things, racial subjects and stereotypes and undertones in what's his name? Quentin Tarantino's films. A lot of people have thought he was racist, but he can't be
I still
racist
do.
because like he, he,
His wife
he
is Asian, first off.
yeah, he pays his actors no differently than anyone else. Excuse me. My allergies playing up. And um, I remember the first scene. I remember Jamie Foxx talking about the first scene in Django where Jamie delivers his lines and Quentin Tarantino's like, cut, Jamie, come with me. And they go into a room and he closes the door and he says, like, what the fuck is that? You know, you come in here with your Gucci bag and your Prada shoes and your Range Rover and you think you're fucking king shit. And he's like, well, you're a fucking slave, you're a fucking slave and you don't have any of that shit, so fucking lose it. And he opens the door and storms out. And then the person interviewing Jamie Foxx is like, would you work with him again? He's like, 1,000 times. Like, because that's what you want. You want someone to tell you what to do and direct you. And Jamie Foxx went in there as a modern man trying to do this movie about a very unmodern black man that's persecuted and segregated and been racist towards and beaten and bruised and is, it's like, absolutely, like, I don't think Quentin Tarantino is a racist. For a start, he wouldn't be able to cast a black man in a leading role.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he'd cast a black man in a leading role if he was a racist. A lot of people still think he's a racist,
That's
because he
stupid
he
people.
he writes the N word down and has
Right.
the N word spoken in his movies. That's really what it
Because
comes
at
down
the
to.
time, that's what would have been said.
Yes,
And
exactly.
when two black people talk to one another, they say, hey, I don't want to say it because I don't want to receive backlash,
Yeah,
but
yeah, you don't
it's
have to, but
it's
yeah,
like it's he's not stupid people. Oh, you're only putting it in there because you're racist. No, I'm putting it in there because it's authentic, and two black people talking to one another would talk to each other in that way. I do
or a
though
slave
think
owner would
a
say
lot of
that.
people say, yeah, go on.
Yeah, or a slave owner would say that, would have said
Mm,
that
yeah,
150 years ago, 200 years ago,
yeah.
to somebody, like it's just it's ignorance on the people calling Quentin
Oh,
Tarantino racist.
absolutely. And it's ignorant because, and they don't realize this, but it's fun to point it out. You're telling me a white person cannot say something because he doesn't look a particular way. That is, it doesn't. That is in itself racist. That you're telling someone that
Yeah.
they can't say something because you're of the incorrect race. That's
Yeah,
that is in itself racist. So they're they're laying down the law of racism by being racist,
yeah,
which is,
I
and when
agree.
you point that out to people, they're like yeah,
No, no, they don't go. They don't realize they're
maybe
wrong. For
sometimes,
they
yeah,
say maybe occasionally they do.
yeah,
It's like when some people say white people can't have dreadlocks. I've heard
right,
that a lot. Like it's just a freaking hairstyle. Like
mm-hmm,
who you don't own a hairstyle. Nobody owns a hairstyle. It's a cultural thing. Like it's not
mm-hmm,
like who cares how somebody wears their freaking hair? Like
mm-hmm,
there are so many bigger issues at the end of the day to worry about than somebody's freaking dreadlocks. Like and I've seen that become such a heated topic. Like it's so dumb. It's people just they're so afraid for whatever reason of just stepping outside of their box or getting outside of their bubble and opening their mind to new ideas and new ways of thinking. It's sad, unfortunately.
mm, yeah. I mean, yeah, racism is really it's a toxic subject because it's a, a toxic way of thinking.
Yeah, to believe you're
And
superior.
yeah, and that again, that's just got to come from insecurities, um, the lust for power and control, and if you can impose that power and control on people that can't refuse, then yourself feel better. It's like it's narcissistic. It's you know it's a horrible way to look at life, but unfortunately, like I have to, it has to be said, human nature is, if you believe, say for example, Jordan Peterson, who's a Canadian psychologist and
Yeah, I'm
lecturer
aware.
and so on. I agree
Mhm.
with some of the stuff he says, but I also disagree with a lot of the stuff he says. But he said that he went down this dark rabbit hole when he did research into the darker nature of the human psyche, and we're talking like dark, 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 dark. We're talking the Germans that were at Auschwitz that were there, the guards getting some sort of sick kick out of seeing these Jews get gassed and treating them poorly, or then treating them nicely to make them think that they've got a nice guard for them to just switch and do something horrible and sadistic. And he's like, human nature, we can be so incredibly dark, and we're talking the dark, 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 the darkest of dark. But he still
Yeah.
believes that the light can beat it, that it can still be trumped by, you know, good-natured people.
I mean,
It's
that's
just,
what happened in World War II. We did tear them down, but only
mm,
by yeah. Well, I don't want to get into World War II, but yeah, we that did happen. So
yeah, that good goodness will prevail. It's just very difficult to see that goodness when there just seems to be a whole lot more. It squawks loudest. All of the negativity, negative comments, hatred, everything speaks louder. But I think quietly, I think there are more nicer people than there are horrible people.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Peterson, really, to be
Hmm.
honest.
I mean,
I actually went to one of his lectures and I
oh
thought it
yeah,
was nonsensical.
yeah. He does. He
But
does. He does say a lot of nonsensical stuff. You know, if you know, but that's a different topic, I suppose. Maybe that could be the
he's a
topic of a
smart,
next. He is a smart cookie. Yeah.
he is a smart cookie, but I just don't, I don't know. I feel like he's way too far to the right nowadays.
Hmm.
And he just, I think, I don't
I,
know.
to tell you the truth, I'm a bit naive about left and right. I have absolutely no idea what either of them means because I don't really care much for politics. You could say I don't care at all for politics because, you know, believe it or not, whoever the hell we vote for, there's the hidden hand there and agendas behind closed doors that will make these leaders do what they want. So,
Yeah.
do we really think one man, Biden, runs the entire country, or do we really think that there are hidden agendas there that are getting him to pass legislation, pass bills, pass this, agree to things, disagree to others? Do we really think that he's running the country how He sees fit? No. So I think
No, he's
whatever
the,
leader you have is just the tip of the iceberg on something that's just way way sinister in the background, to be honest. Backroom deals, shady deals, this. And I think I don't like politics at all. I just don't like politics. So I don't even know the meaning of left and right or centralist. I just sort of have a vague idea of what's right and wrong.
president in America is never meant to run anything. That's why we have three different branches. We have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches.
Mm.
He has the most power any one man can have, but obviously he doesn't run everything. But he can make a difference. Like, for example, he could make weed federally legal, which would take it off as Schedule One narcotic, and that would change so many lives. But
Hmm.
you're right. There are, but he's not going to do it because there are likely agendas where he's getting paid off behind the scenes or whatever.
These
There's too
agencies
much
just want
money.
money, don't they?
Yeah, it's too much money in politics.
ATFC, CIA, FBI, they all want the
DEA,
money.
yeah,
DEA and
yeah,
so on. ATF.
yeah,
God, you
yeah.
got
They
so
all,
many fucking.
yeah, it's ridiculous to be honest.
And what is it? The United States defense budget was what, 1.7 trillion as of counted up like last year or something in total.
Yeah, it's stupid the
God,
amount of money we spend on defense.
how like we spent 10% of that on an adequate
Helping homeless.
healthcare system,
Oh
yeah, and
yeah,
combating homelessness. You
yeah,
know, Jesus, America would be a country that everybody would want to live in, but it's capitalism gone riot.
yeah. What I always wanted to do was start uh go out and buy some property out in like Utah or something like that, and
Mm,
just started getting donations and build houses for homeless people or build like a little community or a big community. Whoever wanted to live there, whoever wanted help, you know, obviously it
mm.
would take a lot of work and a lot of money but maybe have, some psychiatrists on hand, some, people who,
What do you think the
you know,
likelihood would be if you emailed famous people, tweeted famous people, and said, "Look, you've got a huge
slim.
fortune." They could afford it. All of these rich and famous people, especially like Bezos and
Just emailing them, you'd have
yeah,
to, you'd probably not. You'd have to,
it'd have to be
if
through
I wanted
social
to do
media.
something. Yeah, if I had wanted to do something like that, I would love to do something like that, to be honest. Um, you'd have to get something to go viral, so you got some attention, and then
Hmm.
once you got some attention, getting some, then you could sort of pick it up from there. And once you got one celebrity on board, then or one famous person with a lot of money, then you could get into the ears. Uh,
Yeah.
or into rooms with other people, and that's where you would really start to see a change. But yeah, it could happen. It could definitely happen. But it's just
Mm.
like you know, and you just help anybody who wants to be helped. If you want a roof over your head and some food, you can come stay here for as long as you want, and get yourself off the ground, and you know,
Yeah.
Save some money, and and if you just wanted to live here, that's fine too. Like, but um, I've thought about that for a long time. That's something
Interesting.
I've always, yeah, it'd be a lot of work, but I feel like even if you just save, like, if you just like 1,000 people, it's a
Mm.
lot of people and a lot of food, but still, I think.
Unfortunately, though, the only people you could really cater for would be the local homeless. Not that that's a problem, but there'd be so many more homeless all over the country, wouldn't
No,
there?
I thought about that. I thought about, like, you could, pay for people's bus tickets if they really wanted it to get there.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
Maybe even probably not flights, but bus tickets.
Yeah.
Because there's a pretty good busing system in America. Greyhound is very cheap, uh, you know,
Mhm.
reasonably priced for the most part, and goes pretty much everywhere. So, uh, and you don't need a proper ID and, like, to get onto a bus to get a bus ticket. You just need the money and a ticket. So,
Mm.
flying would be a little more difficult, but you could do it. And once you got the word out, people would start, traveling and going there. I feel like, and again, people who wanted to be helped. Some people choose to be homeless, and if that's what they choose, that's fine. Uh, if that's what they want, you can't force somebody to do something they don't want to do, right? But if
Mm.
there was a family or just a person wanted help, I feel like, I don't know. I've thought about it a lot, so maybe
Yeah.
one day.
I'm thinking of it might be breaking headlines. Damn, there's already a website called Daily Shorts, but I think I could make some YouTube videos called Daily Shorts and just make short videos that
Oh
link
yeah,
people
short
to.
videos are a good way to do it. TikTok is a good way to do it too. To be honest, TikTok's probably the best way to get attention now. Uh, I would say
Mm.
YouTube Shorts are good, but TikTok for sure is the best way to get to build like a small channel from the ground up, and then
Mm.
start driving your traffic elsewhere. 100%. If you did a TikTok every day, because they don't got to be long.
TikTok
They
of
can
what?
be, I don't know. You could just have a TikTok of a take. Or you could take a clip. You don't even have to. You could take a clip from your daily podcast, something you think stands out, for instance,
Mm. Yeah.
from today's or yesterday's or your weather. Like, people love information like your weather podcast, where you're talking about, you know, uh, transvortices and
Oh, subvortices.
subvortices. Excuse me, not transvortices, subvortices, and yeah,
Yeah,
not
I'm
trans.
a bit of a nerd about the weather. It has to be said.
Yeah, no, but people love that kind of stuff. You could post some weather fact on there and then be like, "Hey, you want to see more? Come to the daily, link to Daily Takeaway." And it might not be a ton of traffic right off the bat, but you'll get
Mm.
some. I'm telling, like, I think that's a good idea, to be honest. Taking just, 30, you can do, 3 second to 3 minute clips on TikTok. So
Mm.
it's a really good platform for that.
Interesting.
Much better than
www.tiktok.
YouTube. But you could post them on both. Obviously, if you're gonna fucking freaking take the time to use like Premiere Pro and clip it, uh,
Yeah.
and then upload it to TikTok, I would just upload it to YouTube as well at that point. But
Hmm.
TikTok is the way for sure to drive traffic right now.
Interesting.
You don't make a lot of money on TikTok,
You say that
but
while burping.
excuse me, sorry,
Oh dear.
my monster energy drink. It's my crack.
I don't drink any form of caffeine anymore because of some health issues. I have. Okay, it has nothing to do with racing, so maybe I can put end the podcast here, so it's like an hour and 20 minutes. But I guess the closing statement would be, you know,
Don't be
racism.
racist.
Yeah, racism doesn't need to be a thing because it's not a thing. It's it's a
Well, it is a
concept or
thing.
yeah, it is it's a racism is a thing because it's an attitude, and it's
Mm.
a stupid attitude. It's it's an
It's
ignorant
ignorance.
attitude where people just don't realize where they come from and who they are and who they have to thank for being where they are, because without
Right.
Africans we wouldn't be here. So, like, just a little bit more respect, a little bit more sort of, I don't know, awareness of who you are and how you act and how people will see you, and stop treating people differently because, oh, look, if you're nice to them, I'm pretty sure that they'll be, you have an infinitely better chance that they'll be nicer back to you. And one
You get
day
more
you
bees
may
with
be in a
honey.
situation where you need help, and it will be from someone that you don't like. And I guess the closing statement will be this: Darren Brown is a hypnotist and stage magician and psychologist and illusionist and so on. And one of his specials, one of his shows, he had someone from America, right? You know, redneck sort of racist attitudes towards Mexicans. He took this man and, without hypnotizing him or anything, just had this man sit in a room with a Mexican and just look at each other. And apparently this works, to have two people with some sort of opposing differences sit in a room and just look at each other without saying a word. And for minutes and minutes go by where nothing is said, and then the white man starts to break down into tears, bawling his eyes out. And he says, "Man, can I just hug you?" And then he hugged, because it dawned on him in that moment that the person that he was looking at was no different to him. And his whole life had been racist and horrible towards Mexicans. And this belief system of his was not his own. It was his parents, and it was this people around him had told him how to behave. It wasn't his. And he broke. And from that moment, I hope, it'd be lovely to think that he's no longer racist. But in that moment, it dawned on him, like, we're not so different, you and I, and it's a beautiful thing. So maybe, the hope here is that people can just be nicer to one another. It doesn't kill
Yeah.
you.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I'm gonna
free.
keep it simple.
Yeah.
You get more bees with honey.
Mm.
You get more bees with honey, people.
There we go. Thank you very much, everybody. Tune in again tomorrow. I don't know what the topic of conversation tomorrow will be. I mean, racism was something that just literally, in like 20-second periods, like, that's what I can talk about because it's something I'm passionate about. So tomorrow it may be the same thing. So yes, Daily Takeaway on Twitch, Linktree, Linktree /Daily Takeaway for lots of links. I'll put this in the YouTube. I'll put this in the comments. All the social media and everything will be in the comments. Thanks everyone for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.